Anthony Mangnall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And can I start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Meriden for raising this issue? Because from listening to the speeches that we've heard already, it's clear whether in an urban setting or a rural setting, we are all facing the same problem, a pernicious crime that is fly tipping. And it happens in my constituency to a greater degree over the pandemic. And it is stark when you look at the statistics that over the last 2 years, we've only seen this issue get worse. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, just quote the figures from across the country. In the East Midlands, it's got 20% worse. In the East, it's got 29% worse. In London, it's 6.9% worse. In the North East, it's 26.7% worse. In the North West, it's 21.8% worse. In the South East, it's 34% worse. In the South West, it's 9.2% worse. And in the West Midlands, it's 27.9% worse, with the only area in the country to see an improvement being Yorkshire and the Humber, of a reduction in fly tipping by 1.6%. Surely there may be a lesson that we can learn in that. But alongside this, there's also been a reduction in the number of fixed penalty notices made on fly tipping by 24%. So clearly what needs to be done has to have a serious redress of who is disposing of waste, where they are disposing of it, and the people who are using the services of these organisations have some responsibility in ensuring that they are using a safe and responsible disposer of their waste, because they too have a responsibility to make sure that their white goods, their mattresses, their furniture reaches the places they need to go. And I think it was interesting to hear the point from members of the opposition talking about the responsibility of local authorities. Of course it rests with local authorities to take some action, but it also relies on individual businesses having that responsibility to making sure they can get access to the tips to be able to put their waste into, but also the people who are getting rid of this. But one of the biggest problems I found, Mr. Chairman, in my constituency is how we document this. It is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive to be able to document the crime itself. We can talk about putting up CCTV cameras in all areas, but the reality bites, which is that people in the rural areas do not want to see CCTV cameras put up all across their rural areas. So we're going to have to find a way from council to individual to business, where there is a register, where there are hard level fines to punish people for committing this crime, to make sure we can stamp it out in that way, rather than just relying on big state CCTV to try and document things that we're not always going to be able to do. And then it comes to the fines, because the biggest problem that we have here, and according to the notes that I have from last year and the Panorama documentary that I think myself and the member for Peterborough referenced in a debate that we did last year, which is that, and I think it's Rubbish Tip Britain, it costs around £1,500 to £2,000 for a council to investigate and then prosecute. And yet the average fine is £170. Clearly, when you have that imbalance to this whole position of fining, you are not going to discourage people from doing it. And then you have the added problem of what happens if you employ someone to come and take your waste away and they then subcontract it to someone else. Clearly, there has to be a register, there has to be a measure that it's in place. Now, the Honourable Gentleman for Meriden ended his speech and started his speech with the words of Jerusalem. And I think it's important that we might also add some Shakespeare to this. And so this silver-sceptred isle, set in a sea of silver, is worth protecting. It is worth ensuring that we can bring people to justice who are committing this crime, who can actually be brought before the law and have punitive fines that will dissuade them from doing this. If we can do that, we'll see an end to it.
Yeah.